And we're back with the Professional Speakers Radio Show and our guest, Nate Hallums. Nate, we were just talking about smart numbers and customer lifetime value and the challenges people have, especially in a COVID or post-COVID or semi-post-COVID, whatever we're calling this thing.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to be post-COVID. That's the whole thing. Is we've built in some habits and behaviors that may not change.
Or it's going to be a hybrid, or it's going to be a some Frankenstein model.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. In 1993, the big thing worldwide was this thing called the knowledge-based economy was going to change the universe, right?
Sure.
And everybody went out and got their masters and PhDs, and then assumed that somebody was going to pay off their student loans on their first paycheck, working away as some think tank hero. Only to find out that there weren't that many companies interested in paying high six-figure salaries to somebody who has no work experience but has a very big degree or collection of degrees.
Right.
And it really did explode because some companies did, like Nortel. They hired everybody with a pulse that had multiple degrees. And then they discovered that while they were getting all this great innovation, it was innovation that couldn't hit the marketplace for 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's ultimately your there's always value in being able to do.
Yeah.
So being able to think about something is valuable, and I'm a big believer in education, but there's always value in being able to do. And one of my favorite sayings is you can't learn how to play soccer by reading about it.
Yeah.
So you really have to get in there and figure out what works, what doesn't work for your particular situation, and having a particular tool or expertise in doing something rather than teaching it or thinking about it is always going to be valuable. And think tanks are needed. Basic research is needed, but we actually need to do what I was talking about before, the last mile. You had all these big box machines inside the corporate headquarters, but until we could deliver that to the customer, and all the products that were being housed in there, being able to take that actually to Main Street is really all the key.
And that was a big challenge to me at the time, was looking at the model, and the model didn't make sense to me because, again, it's not that the companies don't need the thinkers to do their thinking. They just can't afford to keep them full-time staff at high salaries that they are meriting for the level of expertise that they're bringing to the table. So at the time that Hillary Clinton and the rest of the global worldview people were busy working on this global village and the knowledge-based economy stuff, I got asked to write an article for Office Depot's website, and I think it got into a couple of major magazines as well. And what I wrote about was the distributed knowledge-based economy, because all of those experts were going to hit a wall, a ceiling at some point. None of them were going to be hired to run companies.
Right.
They're going to be hired to do what they do, but none of them are going to be hired to run companies. So there was no upper level they were going to have as career growth. That was their best case scenario. That's the optimum, is they're going to flatline salary-wise for decades.
Right.
Oh, is that an ever-redeeming qualification to have? Great. So if that wasn't the case that killed that particular model, then the other thing that was going to kill it was, of course, the companies couldn't keep them on forever with this ever-extended revenue model to support them. So I thought about that and said, it's not that they don't need them, they just need them in practical doses.
Well, yeah. So, and what you're leading to, I think, is the kind of the on-demand world that we live in right now. And so not only do businesses need things on an on-demand basis, but that's all driven a lot by reacting to what consumers need on an on-demand basis. And so kind of the gorilla in the room is Google, and Google did the ultimate kind of encapsulation of that whole thing and said, let's continue to learn every single day, every single click. Let's continue to learn what the customer wants.
Yeah.
And so they've taken it now to a level where they clearly, there's kind of three overriding principles that Google rewards. One is trust, clarity, and then consistency.
Yeah.
And understanding how Google defines those three things is really all about what it is to be found on the internet, because they're focused on the user experience.
Yeah.
There's another Google update coming out here next month, and that's going to be focused on speed. So all the people that were writing applications for the, kind of the old Google, you know, they're not going to be ready, because now there's something focused on speed. So if you have a website and you kind of took the old school approach to being ranked first on Google, and now they're going to be focused on speed, and you have a slow website. I was looking at a client's website last night, and they've got a half dozen pages that take more than 6 seconds to load.
Yeah.
And in reality, that's not a long time.
Yeah.
In Google world, that's a long time. That's like an eternity. You might as well retire. So these days, you need to be in the 1 to 2 second range.
And
so
yet
all of those
they
sort
keep
of
asking
things.
us to put video and other
Oh, I
content
know.
on there
Yeah,
that
yeah,
takes
because
forever to load.
Yeah, because of the user experience. And
Yeah.
so now there's a whole kind of sub industry on how to make things faster, you know, all that kind of stuff. So
every summer Google does speed. Every spring Google does content. Every fall Google, I forget what they do in fall. What did they screw up for me in fall? I feel much like that scene. They screw you in the drive-through, right? From Lethal Weapon.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my relationship with Google. I do well, but I'm annoyed. And part of the annoyance, of course, is when Google does that, the very next thing that happens is all the WordPress plugins and whatnot and themes now have updates.
Right.
And now the updates cause conflicts, and the conflicts cause breakages cause complaints, and they cause me annoyances. So Google, stop
automation, right?
Pick one,
so
right?
you need automation for your updates and for all that. And really the big thing that most people have the problem with those three tenets of trust, you know, clarity and consistency is the consistency.
Yeah.
So trust and clarity, well, clarity is pretty straightforward, even though most people don't get it right. When I look at, I mean, every single site I look at, it seems like there's some pretty straightforward rules that Google gives you, and they don't, and most people that are building sites aren't thinking about what Google's thinking about. So I'll put it that way. The consistency piece is, if I'm posting to your blog, or you're doing your own blog, or you're writing content, or whatever it happens to be, Google, if you say you're going to do it once a day, or you do it once a day every week, you need to keep doing it once a day.
Yeah.
If you're doing it once a week, once a month. So the consistency is really going to give you points, and Google will penalize you. So you can go from page 1 to page 10, depending on how well you actually, you know, kind of walk through the rules.
Well, and that fits into their YouTube model as well. If you're delivering large volumes of videos on YouTube, you get quick rankings fast. If you put some up today and some up next month and some up 2 months later, they're really not that enthused.
Right. And if you're writing, you know, if I've got Chris writing articles for me and putting them on my website, then people stay on my site. Google likes that. Google knows you're on the site for a longer period of time. And there's, you know, believe it or not, there are sites that have 500 pages. Now you only see 5 to 10, but they've got all these pages in the background because that's what Google wants, and whoever's working for them is doing a good job of putting what Google wants on their site. So
exactly. Yeah, no, I'm with you on all that. And the challenge for a lot of business owners now is, now that, not even just business owners, people who were employed in an office pre-COVID, and either moved to remote working for the same company, or simply left the company and moved to starting their own business, doing largely what they were doing before, just for multiple customers.
Sure.
The challenge there is that they didn't get the training on how to be an entrepreneur. They don't have the automation, they don't have the systems, they don't have the websites and the tools and the things that allow them to scale up or to optimize their time. And so automation for them is a 16-letter word.
Yeah.
Right. That they need 3 dictionaries and
Sure.
Carl Sagan to walk them through it. So, but it's exactly what they need to be able to distribute their knowledge or their services or their skills to
Right.
an audience that can pay enough to support them.
Well, so you have automation, you have delegation, and you have outsourcing.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to do my core ideally, so that you talk about being an entrepreneur. So ideally, as an entrepreneur, I'm doing my core added value. I am working on my business and not necessarily in my business. So if it's a real simple example. So I need somebody to take the trash out.
Mhm.
I need somebody to, get my supplies. Whatever it is that I need to, that I don't have to do, I need to try to figure out a way to not do it. So either I delegate it, either I automate it, I delegate it, or I outsource it. So if it's complicated enough, maybe it's complicated as what I do as the core part of my business. But and I don't necessarily want to hire a full-time employee to do that, so I can't delegate it. So I need to hire a competent outsourcer to do that. But putting that whole universe together for the entrepreneur is really what the challenge is, and for them to shop through all the different pieces of that and figure out what's going to work best for them, a lot of times can be more difficult than they're willing to bite
Yeah.
off. So.
And it takes a certain mindset change. And we were talking before the interview about that mindset shift that has to happen to take it from, hey, I have to do all the work,
Right.
to the work has to get done and it really shouldn't be done by me.
Right. In fact, I may not be the best person to do it as smart as I am and as good looking as I am.
Yeah.
So,
I can be really good at it.
Yeah.
Or I can have a really good business.
Right. Right. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you need to give up your passion, because maybe you went into a business because you have a passion for a particular item. You're a florist and you really love the whole arrangement, but you're also an entrepreneur. You're also a business owner. So what I try to do with my clients is help them give themselves a promotion.
Yeah.
So instead of being the manager of the florist shop, be the owner, be the CEO. You may also do some of the tasks. You may do double duty because you enjoy those tasks, but you're also running the business, and you're doing that in a way that's doing all the things we're talking about: delegating, automating, and outsourcing. And so the more you can think about it like that, as I am the CEO, would the CEO be doing what I'm doing right now if I was looking at another business?
Is that where the biggest value for my time is, right? That's
right.
It's the bigger business question. Do I make more money by doing that work or by having somebody do it for me?
Right. Well, there's also, I don't discount the enjoyment factor and the passion factor. So that has to be part of the equation, but it can't be the whole equation.
Yeah. And you can factor that into the time that you spend in your day when you have the business successfully running and affording you that time.
Right. Right. That's a great point. Yeah. So the question is, if I'm in business, I want customers. How do I get those customers? How do I reach them? And obviously I could have someone sitting on the phone calling a bunch of people. I can put an ad in my coupon pack that goes out. There's a number of different ways to do it. But these days, we just talked about how short the attention span is of the consumer, and more so the short attention span even of the business owner. And so I'm better off automating as much of that as I can possibly do. So if I can kind of back to my basic survival kit. So the smart number, the missed call text back.
Yeah.
So I do communicate with you, and I try to capture as much information as I can, because part of my asset, my customer is my asset when they come in, but they can go someplace else. I may never see them again. The more contact I have with them, the more valuable they are to me, not only today, but I'd like to have a lifetime value of that customer and understand that. So those are all the things that I try to help people understand, is when you're doing any sort of advertising, because that's what people do to get people in the door. If you're doing any sort of advertising, what's your return on investment? How do you measure that? And if you don't have systems to capture information, then you can't measure it. So where a lot of people, we were talking earlier about a lot of people having mail systems.
Yeah.
Well, really what they have is an autoresponder. So for people who don't know what an autoresponder is, it's an automated way for me to send out mail. But if I know nothing else about you but your email address, and there's no other way to capture new information about somebody else until I get their email address, then I need something else. We call that a customer relationship management system.
Yeah.
And so that's another piece that needs to be automated. So we can talk more. I don't know if we need to go. Do
Yeah,
some
well, that's
business or-
you're raising the
yeah.
idea of advertising. It's time for us to pay our bills through advertising as well. So
Mhm.
we'll be back after these messages.
Sounds good.
Great.